You feel pain like no other pain, and you know that in your life it's going to be very difficult to...
Prince William walked into the meeting believing the hardest part was already over. His private proposal had been written, revised, and quietly positioned as a way to protect Prince Harry, without reopening the wounds that had divided the family. But inside a closed palace meeting, the future king discovered something far more dangerous than resistance. The trustees had voted against him, not delayed him, not questioned him, overturned him completely, and left William facing a defeat few inside the monarchy believed possible. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. William said nothing when the final decision was placed before him at Windsor. He turned the last page twice, as though another reading might reveal an escape. It did not. The secret arrangement he had pushed for would have given Harry limited private security coordination and controlled access to selected family estates during personal visits, while keeping him outside formal working royal duties. A working royal carries official responsibilities on behalf of the crown, while Harry would have remained a private family member with no restored public role. The prince believed that narrow line could protect both the institution and his brother. The trustees decided otherwise. The closed door changed everything. The Palace Trustees, a fictional supervisory body responsible for certain palace assets, access arrangements, and institutional safeguards, had refused authorization for the plan. William could not simply command those resources, because rules stood between personal wishes and crown property. He placed the document flat on the table and asked whether the proposal had merely been rejected or killed completely. The answer cut deeper. New language had been added specifically to stop him from reviving the same arrangement through another internal route. Harry felt the impact from miles away. During a private call relayed through an intermediary, he learned that his brother had tried to build a path for him and failed. That truth disturbed the story he had carried for years, that William had simply chosen the monarchy over him. Now the Duke faced something harder. The same brother he resented had risked his own standing to protect him. William felt humiliation harden into suspicion. Someone had understood his strategy before the meeting, studied its weak points, and prepared the trustees to close every possible door. He asked who had raised the warning first. The room went still. Then came the answer he had not expected. His father had been briefed before the vote. William could survive losing a vote. What he was not prepared for was discovering that someone inside his own family had helped make certain he lost it. For years, William and Harry had been defined by distance, anger, and words neither could take back. Yet beneath the public fracture, one private instinct had apparently survived: protection. William's defeated proposal was not designed to restore his brother's old life. It was designed to stop the family divide from becoming permanent. And when Harry learned what had happened, the rejection hurt for a reason neither brother could easily admit. The attempt itself still mattered. Harry went silent when the private call reached him. The message was simple but devastating. William had personally defended the arrangement, argued that it could work, and still failed to secure approval. For the Duke, that changed the emotional shape of the entire crisis. He had wanted proof that family concerns still existed behind palace restrictions. Now he had it, but it arrived wrapped inside another rejection. The plan would not have returned patronages, official duties, taxpayer-funded privileges, or constitutional authority. A royal patronage is simply an official connection between a royal and an organization, often used to support public causes. None of that had been promised. William had only tried to create limited personal safeguards around private visits. William felt the humiliation differently. He had quietly assured Harry through an intermediary that the proposal was realistic, narrow enough to survive scrutiny, and carefully separated from any formal royal restoration. Now every one of those assurances looked weak. The prince had believed that his position inside the family carried enough influence to secure something modest. Instead, the trustees had shown him a hard truth. Being the future king did not mean every institutional door opened when he pushed. Catherine saw the weight of that realization later at Windsor. She sat with William after the meeting while he admitted, in a low and controlled voice, that his name had carried less institutional weight than he expected. The princess listened before asking to see the wording of the rejection. She read slowly, then stopped at one clause. Something about it troubled her. It did not simply explain why Harry's arrangement had failed. It warned against any future attempt by William to create similar exceptions through another channel. That language changed the mood completely. Catherine told him it sounded less like a technical decision and more like a message directed at him personally. William read the sentence again. This time the humiliation gave way to suspicion. Harry received another detail soon after. The opposition had not been unanimous from the beginning. According to a documented fictional account of the meeting, several trustees had initially remained undecided. Then, shortly before the final session, their position hardened almost at once. William immediately understood what that meant. Something had happened before the vote. Someone had shifted the room. The answer did not begin in the trustees' chamber. It began weeks earlier, during one tense family encounter that transformed William's quiet plan into a palace threat. Every palace crisis has a moment that seems small when it happens, and enormous only afterward. In this story, that moment came during a private family gathering at Windsor, when one conversation about Harry crossed a line nobody could uncross. William believed he was discussing reconciliation. Another royal heard something very different, the beginning of an unofficial restoration. By the time the evening ended, a warning had already started moving through palace channels, and William did not know it. William had not created the plan in one reckless burst. It had grown through several private exchanges about Harry's future visits to Britain, each conversation exposing the same problem. Family contact remained possible, but every practical detail carried institutional consequences. Catherine understood why her husband wanted a solution, yet she urged him to keep brotherhood separate from constitutional privilege. Constitutional privilege simply means the official rights, access, or authority attached to royal position rather than ordinary family ties. She feared that once those two worlds mixed, even a compassionate gesture could look like a political reversal. The tension finally broke 3 weeks before the trustee vote. During a private Windsor family dinner, William told King Charles that he intended to create a protected route, allowing Harry greater access to family estates, despite the restrictions already in place. The prince believed he was describing a narrow act of reconciliation. His father heard something far larger. To the monarch, those restrictions represented decisions already tied to his reign, and quietly building around them risked weakening the authority behind every boundary the crown had set. Charles set down his glass without raising his voice. He asked one question: had the arrangement already been drafted? William hesitated. That pause answered everything. The king realized his son was no longer discussing an idea. He was discussing a plan already moving toward execution. William immediately felt the conversation harden. What he saw as an attempt to repair a broken family, his father appeared to see as an early challenge to royal authority. William pushed back. He insisted Harry was not being restored as a working royal, and that no public role, patronage, or constitutional power was being returned. Charles accepted the distinction, but not the risk. The king warned that institutions rarely judge intentions alone. They judge precedent. A private exception created for one brother could later become an argument for another exception somewhere else. The real consequence came after William left. Charles requested a confidential fictional legal briefing examining whether a future monarch could informally reopen arrangements already restricted by the crown. That briefing explained the risks in stark terms, and it later reached the palace trustees. Now William understood why several undecided trustees had suddenly hardened their position. His father had not simply disagreed with him across a dinner table. The concern had moved into the machinery of the palace and become the foundation of the resistance he later faced. The paperwork had only carried the message. The real fight had always been personal, and when father and son finally met without advisors between them, the argument stopped being about Harry and became a battle over who truly controlled the future of the monarchy. The confrontation was quiet at first. That made it worse. William entered believing he was asking his father to explain a decision. Charles understood immediately that his son was accusing him of engineering it. No courtiers softened the language. No aides interrupted. Two generations of monarchy stood on opposite sides of a private room, each convinced he was protecting the crown. And for perhaps the first time, William discovered how completely compassion and power could collide when both men believed history was on their side. William had requested the meeting after tracing the trustees' resistance back to the legal briefing his father had ordered. He wanted one answer above all others. Had Charles simply raised concerns, or had he quietly shaped the defeat from the beginning? The king believed continuity was part of sovereign duty. Sovereign duty means the responsibility of the monarch to protect the stability, rules, and authority of the crown beyond personal feelings. Once institutional boundaries were created, he believed weakening them for one family crisis could make every future boundary easier to challenge. William refused to accept that argument without a fight. He told his father that Harry had never been promised a return to public duties, titles, patronages, or formal authority. The prince had been trying to protect a brother, not rebuild a working royal. Charles answered just as firmly. The moment crown-controlled resources, protected estates, or official security structures entered the arrangement, he said, the distinction stopped being purely personal. The tension finally broke. William pushed his chair back and asked whether his father had wanted the trustees to defeat him. Charles did not flinch. He said he had wanted them to understand the consequences before making any decision. That answer only sharpened the anger. To William, it sounded like influence dressed as neutrality. Charles then delivered the detail his son had not expected. He had never ordered a no vote. According to a fictional documented account of their private exchange, the king insisted that the trustees had reviewed the briefing and reached their own conclusion. He had opened the door to scrutiny, but he had not told them how to vote. William listened, but the distinction offered little comfort. Without that briefing, the resistance might never have hardened. The real wound came next. Charles warned that several trustees had raised a deeper concern about William himself. They feared the future king was already making decisions emotionally, using the authority attached to his position as though accession had already happened. Accession is the moment a new monarch formally takes the throne after the previous sovereign's reign ends. For William, the accusation was brutal. His attempt to help Harry had become evidence against his judgment. William left furious, convinced the institution had judged more than his proposal. Then another message reached him. One of the trustees wanted to meet privately, and he was prepared to explain what had really happened inside the vote. The king had defended the system. Now William was about to meet one of the people who had used that system against him. William expected another lecture about procedure. Instead, he was given something much harder to dismiss. One senior trustee laid out the problem in painfully simple terms. The proposal was not rejected because Harry was unwanted. It was rejected because William's method threatened to create a precedent no future monarch could easily contain. The prince had believed he was protecting his brother. The trustees believed they were protecting the crown from the future king himself. William listened without interrupting, but frustration showed in every pause. The trustee explained that the fictional supervisory structure existed to control specified royal assets, protected access, and continuity safeguards that could not be changed by personal preference alone. A trusteeship is an arrangement in which appointed people manage certain assets or responsibilities under fixed rules, rather than serving one individual's wishes. That mattered, because William had influence, but he had not yet inherited the full authority of the crown. Until accession, even the future monarch remained bound by existing agreements. The prince pushed back immediately. He said the trustees had turned Harry into a constitutional problem, and forgotten that he was also a son, a brother, and a father. William argued that the proposal was narrow by design. It did not restore public duties or recreate an official role. It simply gave him room to protect someone he still considered family. The trustee did not challenge the emotion behind that argument. He challenged the mechanism. The official leaned forward and told William that compassion was exactly why informal exceptions were dangerous. A decision made for Harry today could become the justification for a different exception tomorrow. The prince stared back, increasingly angry, because the warning sounded less like caution and more like distrust. Then the trustee slid a copy of William's original proposal across the table and pointed to one clause. That sentence changed everything. It gave William limited discretion to approve similar exceptions in future cases, without returning the entire issue to the same supervisory process. The prince had viewed the clause as practical flexibility. The trustees viewed it as something far larger, authority being quietly claimed before the crown had actually passed to him. William finally understood the real fear. Harry's immediate access had never been the only issue. The deeper concern was what kind of power the future king believed he could exercise now. His attempt to protect one brother had been interpreted as a test of institutional limits. Then came the revelation that hardened his expression. According to a fictional documented account of the private meeting, one trustee had originally supported the proposal and defended William's intentions. Hours before the vote, that support disappeared after a final confidential memorandum circulated among the members. William asked who had written it. The trustee did not answer immediately. That silence told him enough. William no longer cared only about overturning the decision. He wanted the memorandum because whoever had written it had done more than defeat Harry's protection plan. They had reshaped how the institution viewed his judgment. And once William learned what the final warning said, humiliation gave way to something colder, the realization that his judgment had been placed on trial. Harry had expected rejection from the institution. What he had not expected was hope first. That made the defeat cut deeper. For a brief moment, he had been told his brother was trying to build a narrow path back toward family contact, without demanding surrender from either side. Then the path disappeared. And when Harry finally spoke to William directly, neither man knew whether the failed rescue had brought them closer or exposed how powerless both had become. Harry received the final terms without argument. William's proposed arrangement would not proceed, and the protected structure around future visits was gone. Family contact was still possible, but it would happen without the special security coordination and controlled estate access the prince had tried to secure. That distinction mattered because private affection could continue, while institutional protection could not be guaranteed. For the Duke, it meant every future return would remain vulnerable to the same uncertainty that had already widened the distance between them. Harry called his brother soon afterward. He did not begin with anger. He told William he had never asked to become the reason his standing inside the palace was questioned. The words landed hard because the future king had already been carrying that humiliation alone. William answered that the proposal had been his choice from the beginning. He refused to blame Harry, refused to pretend the defeat had been forced upon him, and admitted that he had underestimated how fiercely the institution would resist. William then revealed something darker through their recorded fictional conversation. The trustees' memorandum had questioned whether his personal loyalty to Harry could override institutional discipline. Institutional discipline means the rules and limits designed to keep royal decisions consistent, even when family emotions pull in another direction. The prince told his brother that the wording did not merely challenge the plan, it challenged his judgment. Harry understood immediately. The fight was no longer centered on whether he deserved greater family access. It had become a test of whether William could be trusted with future power. That realization stripped away much of his anger. If the prince kept pushing, every new appeal could be used as further proof that emotion was controlling him. Silence followed. Harry looked at the dates he had written in a notebook for a possible private return to Britain. He had imagined those dates as the beginning of something repaired. Now they looked like evidence of a future that had never truly existed. He remained seated for several minutes, then closed the notebook. Harry made his decision before the call ended. He would not ask William to appeal. He would not demand another route through the palace. He would not allow his own position to become the reason his brother's fitness to lead was questioned again. For years, William had been expected to rescue the relationship. Now, Harry was about to do something neither brother had anticipated. He would take the burden away from him. The most important moment did not happen before trustees, lawyers, or courtiers. It happened between two brothers, with nobody else in the room. Harry did not ask William to challenge the decision again. He did not demand another route, another concession, or another promise. Instead, he told him to stop. After years of conflict, that single choice changed everything. William had tried to protect Harry from the institution. Harry now chose to protect William from destroying himself against it. William agreed to the private meeting, knowing another appeal was still possible in theory. But reopening the trustee decision would no longer be a simple family request. It could become a constitutional confrontation, meaning a direct clash over how royal authority, institutional rules, and the future powers of the crown should operate. That mattered, because the prince was not only fighting for his brother anymore. Every move he made was now being judged as evidence of how he might one day govern. Harry spoke first. He told William he did not want him spending future authority trying to repair every wound created by the past. The Duke understood something neither of them had admitted before. No document could reverse years of anger, and no palace mechanism could force trust back into existence. If their relationship survived, it would have to survive without guarantees. William resisted that idea at first. He admitted that part of his determination had come from guilt. Their relationship had deteriorated so badly that helping Harry through the institution had begun to feel like a way of correcting his own failures as a brother. The future king had believed that if he could build one protected path, perhaps everything else could slowly follow. Saying it aloud exposed the weakness beneath all that determination. Harry answered without anger. According to a fictional recorded account of their private conversation, he told William that guilt was not reconciliation. Guilt kept one man trying to repay a debt, while the other remained trapped inside the injury. Reconciliation required something harder, choosing contact without demanding that the past be erased first. William reached into his jacket and removed the folded copy of the rejected proposal. He looked at it for several seconds. Then, instead of preparing another challenge, he tore it in half. The sound carried more weight than another argument ever could. The prince was not giving up on his brother. He was giving up on the belief that the palace had to repair what existed between them. Harry offered something far simpler in return: private calls, ordinary meetings, family contact without trustees, special access or institutional protection standing between them. It would be uncomfortable, it would be imperfect, but it would belong to them. That choice changed the balance completely. Yet peace inside the family would not remain private for long. Once William's failed intervention reached the public, restraint would look like defeat to some, weakness to others, and unexpected maturity to those willing to look closer. Inside the family, the defeat had become reconciliation. Outside, it was about to become a national argument over power, loyalty, and the future king. By morning, the story had escaped the palace. But the country did not see the private conversation between two brothers. It saw a future king whose own proposal had been blocked by royal trustees. To some, William looked compassionate. To others, reckless. To others still, the rejection proved that the crown's machinery was stronger than the man destined to inherit it. One newspaper image captured the conflict perfectly and turned a private family defeat into a public test of William's authority. William read the palace statement before it was released and immediately understood how little protection it offered him. The wording confirmed that no change would be made to existing private access arrangements, meaning Harry would receive no new institutional pathway, no restored privilege, and no special mechanism surrounding future visits. That mattered, because the dispute was no longer hidden inside family conversations. The public could now measure the future king's personal wishes against the limits imposed by the system he would one day lead. The reaction came fast. A fictional national newspaper appeared with the headline, "Future King Overruled," placing William's departure from Windsor beneath the smaller line, "Trustees Block Harry Protection Plan." Commentators seized on the symbolism. One side argued that the prince had shown loyalty by trying to help his brother. Another saw poor judgment. A third interpretation cut deepest. Perhaps the institution trusted its own safeguards more than the man preparing to inherit them. Catherine sat beside William as the morning coverage intensified. She watched him remain still, while one broadcaster described the decision as his first constitutional humiliation. The phrase landed harder than the headline. Constitutional humiliation, in this dramatized context, meant a public defeat that exposed the limits of a royal figure's authority within the rules governing the crown. William reached for the remote and turned the television off. The princess said nothing at first. She knew his real fear was not embarrassment alone. He feared compassion had been translated into weakness. Harry faced pressure of his own. According to a fictional private briefing shared with him that morning, advisors suggested he could condemn the trustees and defend William's intentions. The Duke refused. He understood that attacking the institution would only deepen his brother's humiliation and make their fragile reconciliation look like another coordinated battle against the palace. Then the story shifted. Broadcasters learned that William himself had chosen not to challenge the ruling. The prince had not been forced into another defeat. He had stepped away willingly. Soon, carefully limited details of the brothers' understanding emerged. No royal restoration, no new privilege, but renewed personal contact on ordinary family terms. Public judgment began to soften. William had lost the institutional battle, but refusing revenge changed the meaning of that loss. The question was no longer whether he had been defeated. It was whether accepting defeat had changed the kind of king he intended to become. The humiliation remained real. But by refusing to turn defeat into revenge, William gave the monarchy a very different ending. William did not get what he wanted. The trustees did not reverse themselves. Harry received no special palace arrangement, and Charles did not apologize for allowing the system to challenge his son. Yet the story ended with something more important than victory. William discovered that becoming king would not mean possessing unlimited power. Harry discovered that being loved by his brother did not require being restored by the institution. And the monarchy survived because, for once, nobody demanded complete surrender. William formally withdrew any attempt to revive the defeated proposal. The trustee ruling remained intact, and Harry accepted that future family contact would happen privately rather than through an institutional restoration. That mattered, because restoration would have meant rebuilding an official royal role, while private contact required nothing more than the willingness of two brothers to speak. The prince had entered this fight believing structure could protect reconciliation. He now understood that structure could also suffocate it. William met Charles one final time, with none of the anger that had defined their earlier confrontation. He admitted that his father had been right about one principle. Compassion could not simply erase constitutional boundaries. Constitutional boundaries are the formal limits that stop personal wishes from overriding the rules surrounding royal authority. The future king did not enjoy saying it, but maturity demanded more than winning. It demanded recognizing where his own judgment had failed. Charles answered with equal restraint. According to a fictional documented account of their private conversation, the king admitted that William's instinct to protect Harry had never been the problem. The danger had been the mechanism. By trying to create a path around existing restrictions, the prince had underestimated how quickly a family gesture could become an institutional precedent. Neither man apologized for everything. Neither pretended the conflict had been meaningless. Then Charles extended his hand across the table. William looked at it for a moment before taking it. The gesture did not erase the argument. It ended the need to keep fighting it. Harry later spoke with William again, and something remarkable was missing from the conversation. There were no trustees, no titles, no security arrangements, no discussion of palace authority. The Duke spoke to his brother as family, and the prince answered the same way. For the first time in this entire crisis, their relationship moved forward, without the monarchy negotiating every step between them. William finally understood what the humiliation had taught him. Future sovereignty would not be defined by how often he could force an outcome. Sovereignty means the ultimate authority carried by the monarch. But real leadership also requires knowing when restraint protects that authority better than victory. He had lost the plan, yet gained a harder lesson about power. Harry did not regain his former royal position. William did not overturn the trustees. Charles did not retreat from the institutional line. But the brothers recovered something the palace could neither grant nor deny: a relationship no document could manufacture. The defeat had not weakened William. It had changed him. There was no unresolved battle left. William lost his secret plan. Harry accepted the boundary, and Charles preserved the institution. But the family emerged with something none of them had been able to command: a fragile, voluntary peace. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.